Chairman, we're now live.
A warm welcome to everybody, those attending and watching live on our council YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. My name is Councillor Higgins and I am the chairman of this meeting. Details of business to be considered today are shown on the agenda, copies of which are accessible in the room and under the live broadcast. For those present in the room and attending to speak, please note that when you will be filmed and any statement that you make will be recorded and made public. A reminder to anybody speaking today that your voice will only be audible online if the microphone is switched on. Fire alarm. We're not expecting one, so if the alarms do go off, please follow officers out of the building. Mobile devices, please can you just make sure they're switched off or silent. Obviously some of the councillors and myself, we are trying to go paperless, so you'd have to forgive us if we're trying to computerise here, so that's why I've got mine here. The attendees of the meeting, first we have Councillor Darren Davis, Councillor Chubadar, Councillor Gohill, Councillor Sansapuri and Councillor Singh. Welcome. You're one light tonight, are you? Okay. Now, officers, the most important people here actually, is Ross Johnson, my Planning Service Manager, Kate Crosby, Planning Officer, and Nisha Burnham, a Principal Planning Officer. Alan Tilley is my Transport and Aviation Team Manager. Mr. Joby, Legal Advice, welcome. Very good. He's new and most welcome. And Liz Penny, who is the most important person here. She's the one, if I do anything, she kicks me under the table. If you hear me saying ouch, you know that I've said something wrong. So we're going to move on to the main agenda, which now is apologies for absence.
Yes, Chairman. Apologies have been received from Councillor Mand and also from Councillor Steve Tuckwell with Councillor Darren Davies substituting.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Councillor Davies. Declarations of interest matters before this meeting. Anybody? No? Me neither. Do we receive and agree the minutes of the last meeting? That's agreed. Great. Matters notified in advance are urgent. There are none. And to confirm that all reports are in public and nothing in private. So we're going to move to the agenda now. So you're going to have to wait while I flick a switch, and there we go. We're off to the agenda here. What I'm going to do is there's going to be a slight change in running order. I'm going to take item 10 as a councillor has to get away for another meeting, and then we'll follow 6, 7, and 8 and 9. Those petitioners that are speaking, petitioners have 5 minutes. And we have a traffic light system, so green will give you 4, yellow will give you 1 minute, and red I will tell you to stop. I will tell you to stop, so please don't be offended if I say stop. We also have councillors, and they only get 3 minutes. The reason they only get 3 minutes is because they talk a lot, so we make sure they keep them on track. So we're going to go straight to the agenda, so it's item 10. Katie?
Great, thank you, Chairman. So item 10 is, actually before we begin, I'd just like to bring to members and attendees' attention that since the publication of the addendum report yesterday, we have received the final response from the EA, the Environment Agency, and they don't raise any objection to the development on flood risk grounds. Okay, so this application is a householder development. It's for a 3-storey side extension with the first floor rear balcony. There's also some fenestration alterations proposed, including a change of a ground floor side door to a window and to insert bifolding doors to the rear. But the main part of it is a 3-storey side extension. So this is the location here. As you can see, the site, if you take note here of the relationship to neighbouring properties, and you can see the crescent-shaped layout of the dwellings to the north of the site. Okay, this is the constraints plan. So the key constraints here are it's located within the Copper Mill Lock Conservation Area. There's a tree preservation order on site, but there's no trees of merit that would be affected, that can't be protected by condition. And to the front of the site is also greenbelt. Not entirely sure what's happening there. Okay, while I wait for that, I'll just update on officers' recommendations. So officers have assessed the proposal and They do consider that on balance there would be no harm to the character and appearance of the conservation area, and that its appearance would be preserved. There would be no highways and parking concerns given the existing off-street provision. Any trees of merit could be protected by condition in the event that planning permission was to be granted. And it's also noted that the Environment Agency doesn't raise any objections on flood risk grounds. What we do raise, though, is the concern with harm to residential amenities. That's the main reason that is the key reason that the application is being refused. So the residential harm is the harm to a neighbouring window at number 27. I'll show you that in a second. We'll go through some photos. So these are the existing plans. You can see the house as existing as 3 stories, and you can see the garage to the right-hand side of the house that's been demolished, and the 3 stories are going there. So these are the proposed plans. You can see the extension, and you can see on the rear elevation at the ground floor, that's where the bifolding doors are being proposed, and also a side door there. Okay, bird's eye view. So this just provides a bit of site context. So you can see to the rear of the site is the Grand Union Canal. So this part of it is considered a main river. The greenbelt's across the other side of the road. And these are the site photos. This is the front elevation. The application site is on the left, and this is just looking down the street, down the road, looking south. This is the front elevation again, so you can see number 29 to the left-hand side of the dwelling, and then number 27, which is the affected property, to the right. So here we can see closer, that's the first floor window that we have concerns with. Due to the orientation of the window and where the 3-storey extension is going to go, officers have determined that there would be loss of outlook from and a harmful sense of enclosure to that window. And this is just a couple more photos to the rear and a view from the other side of the canal. This is an image from that bedroom window as well, so you can see there that's the application site out the window. Okay, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Kate. Okay, so we have Miss Anna Cardoso, is that correct pronunciation? Forgive me if it isn't. Please come take your seat. Your time will start when you press the button. Okay. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, councillors and members of the committee, my name is Ana Cardoso. I'm next door neighbour, so I live in number 27, and I'm here today to represent a petition of 44 signatures against this planning application. 44 signatures, an overwhelming response from a street with only 38 houses, and also inspiring is to know that 9 of those residents are here today to support this same petition. Although the application is set for refusal for the grounds explained, the same picture we just saw from that bedroom window, we believe that more reasons should be part of the refusal reason why I'm here speaking today. So if you go on slide 2, please. So another reason for refusal, in addition to the first one, we ask the committee to reinforce the Conservation Officer report and recommendations, because irrespectively of the quality of the design, according to the Conservation Officer's report, this 3-story side extension is bulky due to its height, size and scale, would cause unprecedented harm to historical street patterns and to the conservation area character. I know you don't look at this, but this is also covered in covenants. Is also predominantly visible from the Grand Union Canal, has been stated. Visibility from Grand Union Canal has historical precedent in rejecting previous planning applications from multi-story extension and single-story extension as well. According to the Conservation Officer, the development would cause harm and go against the NPPF, local policies, London plan policies, by not presenting public benefits which outweigh the harm that has been identified. Further to the submitted drawings in October 2022, the Conservation Officer still recommends no extension to the side and still highlights the harm caused to the architectural of the design group and harm to the conservation area. Slide 3, please. There is also loss of light, daylight sunlight and outlook for a habitable area, which by mistake or inaccurately the planning report has not identified when it's saying that there are no openings in habitable rooms on the south side of the number 27. We would like the planning committee to correct this. This is my home office in the ground floor. It has also been a single bedroom. At the moment is my home office. So I would like the committee to correct this on the report, and also to acknowledge that the impact on light, outlook and sense of enclosure is not assessed in this habitable area, and the applicant has not submitted daylight, sunlight and overshadowing report with the planning application. Slide 4, please. We ask the committee also to acknowledge that there is impairment of private amenity space in the back garden from number 27. Regarding the proposed first floor balcony, the the planning officer has said, quote, the levels of overlooking would be comparable to the existing, giving the existing balcony at this level, offering similar views. Now, we disagree with this. As you can see, the balcony there on the side, and with the fact that at the moment is at 4 meters distance from that boundary wall, with absolutely no directional view into that private area, and by setting back 1 meter and being 1 meter distance from the boundary wall, and apologies for my really bad drawing and line, that would directly overlook into that private sitting area, plus the whole garden, which at the moment is sheltered. I would also like to highlight the site asbestos history, and raise this as a concern, and also the fact it being a conservation area, every single tree is TPO, and there's also circa 10 meters of hedge that is at risk, so need to be looked after. I'm ready for any questions. Thank you.
Well timed, thank you. Does any councillors have any questions for the petitioner? No, so no one wants anything. You may take a seat. Can you turn the microphone off for me, please? Thank you very much. The applicant, Ian Blitcher, is he here? It says here that I don't know who's going to speak. Is it? Oh, we're both going to speak. Okay. Yeah, you still only have 5 minutes though. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so when you press the red button when you're ready, and off you go. That's it. That's the one.
Hi, my name's Helen, and this is Ian. We're both divorced. We have 3 children each, and we moved in together into 28 Jack Lane about 2 years ago now. I guess we've got children who are coming and going, and the property's a little bit cramped in terms of what we need. So we were hoping to use the space to not interfere with the neighbours too much, but just to get a little bit more space for living for our rather large family. We basically submitted pre-planning in June 2021. We took advice from the planning department and eventually submitted some plans in May 2022. At that time, after consultation, there were 10 complaints, which was about loss of outlook, but the loss of outlook was to the side between the 2 houses. So we went back and worked with the planning department and the conservation comments and did an amended plan, which is a different design, is kind of more recessed to have less impact and actually be less bulky, and really just to kind of make sure that it is compliant with all of the various planning requirements, etc. So that was, we were told by the planning department in October that it would be recommended for approval, that we had met all the criteria. So obviously we've come here today and we were phoned literally about a week ago to say that it would be recommended for refusal due to sense of enclosure, but for a completely different reason than everything else that had previously been discussed. So I think from that point of view I'll hand over to Ian just to talk about the window.
So at the end of the day, we want to work with planning and we want to come up with a design that works for everybody. It's a shame that there seems to be a lot of people here that are opposing it. We just want a design that works for our family. We've got a very small kitchen at the moment, very small dining room. There's not really enough room. But what we're concerned about, though, if we go through the details, page 11 of the planning document, paragraph 3, said, "It is concluded that the proposal in respect of design and heritage impact complies with the objectives of policy HC1 and D3 of the London Plan, policy B1 of the Hillingdon Plan, Part 1 development managing policies, policies DMHT1, DMHP4, DMHP11 and DMHP12 of the Hillingdon Local Plan." As far as we're concerned, it was approved, and we're a little bit concerned that we're here today that it's not. And the reason given, and it seems rather last minute, is because of this window. And again, it seems a little bit last minute, because in the original complaints there was no mention of this window at the front. And this is the window. Yeah, if we can hand out. Sorry, we're not efficient. We don't have slides, but if you can hand out.
I beg you, can you stop this? Sorry, we can't take any.
Oh, you can't take that. Okay.
It has to be
all right,
submitted
fine. I'll demonstrate. So the concern is this window, which has been shown. You can see it there. So the gap. We've been told that it's been refused because of loss of outlook and enclosure. So even with the extension, the gap between that window and the extension will be almost 6 metres. That's significant. We don't really feel there's any enclosure there. In terms of outlook, that window overlooks what is our front driveway, basically our car park. And the plan that we have submitted pushes that garage back for another metre. So I think you can clearly see there, in terms of outlook, it doesn't change at all. So we're not changing the outlook in any way, shape or form. Basically the other point as well, initially in terms of the first application, there was no in terms of the first refusal, there was no mention of that window at all. And this is our neighbour's property number 27. It's only a secondary window that we're talking about. They have lots of lovely windows that overlook the canal, which is why everybody wants to live there. But it's not a main bedroom, and everybody has their properties.
Excuse me, sorry, can you just hold on a sec? Can you stop listening? Please, I can't take any comments on it. No one made any comments when you were speaking, so I appreciate if you can do the same.
I think the point that I want to make is that if you look at that, it's an odd window anyway that overlooks us. It's at a funny angle. It's at 45 degrees. We're a little bit concerned that window and that window alone seems to be blocking what would just be a nice family extension for us. If it was a really important window, I would completely agree, but they have plenty of nice windows.
Okay, your time's up. So, does any councillors have any questions for the petitioner? No? Thank you. If you could press the button and go and take your seat.
Thank you.
Thank you. I better give your full title. Councillor Palmer, would you like to come instead of calling you Jane? Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman. It's obvious from two members of the committee, experienced committee, that this is it's up for refusal, and you can see the wealth of support against it behind me. I commend Ms Cardoso for her excellent presentation. All I want to say on this is we appear to have a discrepancy between two officers, a conservation officer and a planning officer, and I'm asking the committee not to ignore the conservation officer, who clearly says it's harm to the street pattern, and the planning officer says it doesn't. When we've got an argument between two professionals, we need to decide which one of them is correct. or we favour, and I'm asking the committee to favour the conservation officer on behalf of the residents. We cannot have a conservation area in Harefield and then ignore it. If you're not going to ignore it, you have to address it. He's clearly said that it's at Harmser Street, and I think the residents, whichever way this goes, deserve to have that addressed correctly. So for me, I would be asking that we have something else. I think there should be more reasons for refusal than there are. So I would be asking for that to be looked at. But as far as I'm concerned, I can't believe that it doesn't affect the conservation area. It absolutely has to. Why have a planning officer say it does, and then a conservation officer say it does, and then a planning officer say it doesn't? Who is correct? So I would ask to err on the side of caution, because I know it's not a reason for refusal, but once it's gone, it's gone. I know you can't consider that, but I'm going to say it anyway. I don't have anything other to say on that, other than I would suggest that the wealth of support behind me is because the whole road disagree with it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. No one has any questions for the councillor? Too late now. Okay, right. Before I go to committee, I will ask officers to pick up some of the comments that were made on the petition and the applicant. Oz, you're going to take all these, yeah?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just thought it would be helpful to respond to some of the points that have been raised. So I'll start with some of the points that the petitioner raised, and actually also the councillor has echoed the same point here, which the petitioner and the councillor have proposed that they would consider we should add an additional reason for refusal in terms of the harm to conservation area. So just so that members are clear, the conservation officer did raise concerns. Now the conservation officer is a consultee, but yourselves as members are the decision maker, so you're not bound to follow the conservation officer's conclusion. So you need to make your own assessment having regard to the comments that the conservation officer obviously made. So just to set some context, and we've heard through the course of this evening that the proposal has been amended during the course of the application process. So essentially, planning officers concluded that on balance, the amendments that have been made have addressed our concerns sufficiently in terms of the impact on the conservation area. So in particular, the extension would be set back from the front and also from the rear, so that on balance we felt that it would appear subordinate. So yeah, essentially we've concluded that it wouldn't be harmful and that it would preserve the character and appearance of the conservation area. But I would say that it was a finely balanced conclusion, and it is open to members to obviously form a different opinion on that. So just move on to some of the other matters that were raised. So it was mentioned regarding the side window that serves the Home Office. So just to clarify, in the report we refer to this as a utility. Now just to explain, we took that information from a plan on Rightmove, so it would appear that that was slightly out of date. Obviously the neighbour has provided the up-to-date photo there. I would have to say it does appear to be sort of a small room, not necessarily one that I would have considered habitable, so I wouldn't recommend that we amend the recommended reason for refusal, but again that's a matter that you will need to consider. We've obviously got a very helpful photo there, so you can make an assessment on your own grounds for that. Turning to privacy, so again we had some helpful photograph displayed to us here, so this gives a useful demonstration of the impact. So my own view, having assessed the proposal, was that the rear windows, which will obviously be stepped in slightly, and the balcony would still have a fairly similar relationship to the existing property. If we were looking to approve this scheme, we would recommend a condition to agree the details of a privacy screen, such as what you can see on there. So on balance, we didn't feel that privacy would stand up to scrutiny in the event of an appeal. And then the final point I noted down that the petitioner raised was in respect of asbestos. So just to confirm, and we clarify this in the addendum, the Council's Contaminated Land Officer has been consulted and raises no objection to the proposal. So now just turning to the applicant's comments, I just wanted to clarify in respect of the planning process. So obviously some plans were initially submitted, and planning officers have sought to work proactively and helpfully with the applicant to try, if possible, to reach a positive outcome. As a result of that, the amended plans were submitted, and we felt that overcame the concerns in terms of design and appearance. However, when it came to myself to do the final review of the report, unfortunately I had concerns about the impact on the window, as we've heard. So hence you have the recommendation for refusal before you, and unfortunately, sometimes an officer gives advice during the process in place, where that recommendation is scrutinised by myself and team leader as well, and this is why we sit here today with the recommendation for refusal. And then I think just the final point, so we've talked about the window that's affected. In my view, it is a significant window. It does serve a bedroom. I think for me as well, the orientation of the building, which as you saw from the plan is sort of slightly unusual, if anything that sort of exacerbates the impact, because it obviously is orientated towards the property. And in my view, the addition of the 3-storey extension in that proximity would be harmful to the outlook and cause a sense of enclosure. So hopefully that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, out to committee. Yes, Councillor Tubular. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like the officers to also address the petitioner's comment about visibility from the Grand Union Canal and its impact on the conservation area, which is really important.
Yeah, so if I can answer that question, yes, it would certainly be visible from the canal. Yeah, that's correct. However, we don't feel that would be a harmful impact. So I think the key thing you've got to consider here is that this is a group of dwellings that were designed with a symmetry in mind. So clearly this extension would alter that because it would change the form of this particular dwelling. So it's whether or not that would cause harm to the conservation area. We felt as officers on balance that it wouldn't. Obviously it would be different, but it would be stepped in, and we felt that on balance that would be acceptable.
Yeah, Councillor, go ahead.
Thank you.
Councillor, go ahead.
Sorry. Thank you, Chairman. I initially saw this, and once I saw the presentation and the plans, it's clear to me that the neighbours of 28 Jacks Lane, especially number 27, would really have significant loss of outlook. And I think the privacy factor of this, in addition to the bulk, makes it really difficult for me to support it, which is, what we naturally want to do. And especially, I take the applicant's comments. I take the applicant's comments to heart. I know they have a lot of children, but ultimately, it's not about one house. It's about the whole street. It's about how the planning application would affect everyone, because everyone has the right to privacy, and there's no one real thing that supersedes the other. On that basis, I would propose that this application be refused.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis.
Can we just get some more clarity on harmful sense of enclosure? How close does a development have to be for it to be classed as that?
So there's no hard and fast rule. So I believe this would be approximately 6 metres from the window. As a kind of general rule of thumb, in the planning world, we tend to consider, if you're talking about a window facing a 2-storey building, distance of 14 metres. So you can see it's considerably shorter than that, and we are talking about a 3-storey building, albeit that the window affected is at the first floor, and obviously there is an existing relationship. So basically there isn't a kind of clear rule for it. You have to sort of form your own judgment.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor Davis.
Thank you. On that, Chairman, I would be happy to second Councillor Gohill.
Do I have any other speakers? No, I'm proposed and seconded. Can we have a show of hands of votes for officer's recommendation with the addendum on the addendum of item 10? All those in favour with officer's refusal, please show. That's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, if you are leaving now, or if you wish to stay, you're more than welcome. But if you do so, please park quietly and don't gather too outside the door, because we've still got a committee meeting to continue. Okay, thank you. So that's been refused. Okay, thank you very much. Right, so we go back to the normal. We'll go back to item 6. Is that you, Kate, again? Yes. This is the trouble. The trouble is that getting back. I know, my microphone's on as well. Right, so, item 6, 10 Oakwood Road, Pinner.
Okay, this application seeks planning permission to demolish an existing bungalow on site and construct a 2-storey building to provide 4 flats. So here we can see the location. It's in a residential area. Okay, so this is the application site here. So it's the pretty much the sole bungalow along Oakwood Road. The road that you see going straight ahead, that one is predominantly characterised by bungalows. So the housing mix would be 2 1-bed, 1 2-bed and 1 3-bed. Officers have assessed the proposal and we're recommending refusal for 4 reasons. The first one is the harmful impact on the character of the area, and this is due to the scale, design and siting. It would also harm neighbouring amenities, specifically number 12 Oakwood, which is the site next door on the left. This is because of the scale of it, which I'll show you in a second, just giving you the headlines of the reasons for refusal. And then the final 2 reasons are to do with the quality of accommodation. So there'd be inadequate outdoor amenity space and poor quality internal accommodation, which compromises privacy and disturbance, and this is principally because of habitable room windows on the ground floor front elevation. So if I just go through some site photos to give you an idea of the site context. So this is looking back toward north towards the site. So this is the street with the bungalows, and sorry, but it's just slipped my mind what that street is called. Find it in a second. This is the bird's eye view of the site here. So as you can see, what you're going to see, so the surrounding dwellings are principally 2-storey terraced and semi-detached properties, and Ashley Close is the street that's characterised by bungalows. So it's on the corner of Ashley Close and Oakwood. Okay, so this is the proposed block plan. So you can see there the scale of the footprint in relation to the 2-storey dwellings on Oakwood. Existing bungalow. This is the proposed floor plans. And if we skip here to the elevation, so this gives you an idea of the scale and design on this corner, very prominent corner location. And this is the CGI elevations. So for the reasons detailed in the report, officers are recommending that the proposal be refused.
Thank you, Kate. Right, Brian Lewis, would you like to come and take a seat? When you're ready, press the button underneath the microphone there, and you'll have your 5 minutes.
Good evening, Chair, Committee. Thank you for this opportunity to address you this evening. My name is Brian, and I started a petition to oppose this application. I live in Ashley Close, and my bungalow borders the rear garden of 10 Oakwood. In fact, the side elevation of the plot in Ashley is probably, well, it's a lot longer than it is in the front elevation in Oakwood. Therefore, myself and residents of Ashley Close will be heavily impacted by this development if it went ahead. 10 Oakwood as a bungalow is entirely in character with the properties in Ashley Close, which are all bungalows. 10 Oakwood is a very large detached bungalow on 2 levels. The applicant may have described it as 2-bedroom, but clearly it would accommodate more bedrooms and could be comfortably described as a family home. And I read in the London Borough of Hillingdon's housing policy not in favour of demolishing perfectly good family homes. Ashley Close is a small, quiet cul-de-sac. Residents consist of a range of people, including families of young children and elderly people. This development would be a shattering blow to the peace and quiet enjoyed by the residents and make the road less safe. We strongly oppose this application, as evidenced by the residents' petition, which consisted in the end of 28 signatories, and there were also a number of objections received by London Borough of Hillingdon, including an objection from the the Northwood Hills Resident Association. Now, there's one entrance to Ashley Close. It's very narrow. In fact, motorists often park halfway on the pavement to avoid damage to their cars. In the report, the highways officer has said there's no concerns regarding the additional pressure on traffic and parking generated by the development. In fact, this cannot be a correct assessment. The 4 flats is shared by couples. There could be up to 7 couples. If they all had a car, it could be up to 14 cars. There's only 5 on-site parking spaces planned. Where would the other cars be parked? I wonder if the highways officer appreciates that Northwood Hills tube station, as I walk it, it's about a 12-minute walk away, and it's now surrounded by resident-only parking. So commuters are forced to park further afield, and they often park in Oakwood Road and in Ashley Close on a daily basis, already putting a lot of pressure on parking. If the entrance, this very narrow entrance to Ashley Close, is blocked by parked cars, this could hamper access by emergency vehicles and make life difficult for example, refuse trucks trying to back down the road. It would also increase risk for pedestrians leaving or entering the road, as parked cars would obstruct their view, and also that of motorists entering or leaving. Not to mention an increase in noise and pollution from additional vehicles using the site. This development is totally inappropriate for this small confined area and would be incongruous, overbearing in its design. It would not be in character with the area. It would obstruct natural light to my home and reduce my privacy, and would have a much greater impact actually on number 12 Oakwood, its immediate neighbour, and the loss of natural light and privity afforded to this resident is completely unacceptable. In short, speaking of myself and a large number of the local residents, we implore you to refuse this application, and we fully support the planning officer's recommendation to refuse this application.
Thank you very much. Does any councillors have any questions for the petitioner? No, thank you. Can you just turn off the microphone for me, please? Is this Mozari? Forgive me, is the applicant here, Mr. Mozari? No? Okay, so that's saved us some time. No councillors present? No? Okay, so we go straight to the committee. Who's going to take me away? Councillor Tubular.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This proposal fails to integrate with the established character of and appearance of the area due to the large scale, design, size and setting. It harms the residential amenities of the occupiers at number 12 Oakwood. Lack of sufficient amenity space for future occupiers. For all these reasons and the reasons quoted by the officer's report, I would like to propose us to go with the officer's recommendation for refusal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I propose anyway, Councillor Sansbury.
It is very clear, as Councillor Chubidar said, that this is not a good proposal for the present and future occupier. And moreover, as it is very clear that public transport accessibility, which is true, which is very poor. And there is as already mentioned, there is only 5 car availability there, parking spaces, and most probably there will be 14 car if it is the planning permission is granted. So I second officer recommendation.
Thank you very much. So I proposed and seconded. Anybody else want to speak? No? Okay. Can I have a show of hands, those in favour with officer recommendation for refusal? That's unanimous too. That's been refused. Thank you very much. We now go on to item 7, land adjacent to 24 Lee Holme Way.
Thank you, Chair. This application proposes the erection of a 3-bedroom detached house with a double garage and amenity space. Here is the location plan. The site comprises an open parcel of grass verge on the southwestern side of Leholme Way, close to the junction with Wheelers Drive and Wallington Close. As can be seen from the aerial image on the slide, the site is located on a prominent corner plot and contains mature trees that collectively make a positive contribution to the verdant character of the area. Here is a street view image of the application site. As can be seen from the constraints plan, the application site does not fall within any heritage designations. However, the site does fall within flood zone 3A, which represents a high probability of flooding. It is important to note that the Environment Agency has objected to the application due to the inadequate flood risk assessment that has been submitted. More specifically, the flood risk assessment fails to demonstrate how the proposed development will be safe from flooding without increasing the risk of flooding elsewhere. According to the Council's GIS, Tree Preservation Order 288 extends partially into the site. Also, the site is designated within a critical drainage area, surface water management zone, RAF North Holt 3 kilometre buffer zone, and partially falls within a potentially contaminated land zone. The site has a public transport accessibility level rating of 1A, which represents a very poor rating. Here is the proposed block plan. Here are the proposed floor plans. The ground floor would contain a kitchen/dining room, utility room and a study. There are 3 bedrooms and a family bathroom at first floor level. Here are the proposed elevations. It has been acknowledged within the committee report that the building lines, height and design of the proposed dwelling and garage would be consistent with the row of terrace properties at numbers 24 and 30 Leholme Way. You can see number 24, the existing property, which is the neighbouring one to my left. However, it is considered that these design features do not address the inappropriate siting of the development on open grass verge or reduce the bulk and mass of the building sufficiently for it to harmonise with the surrounding area. So this photo has been taken from the front of number 24 Leholme, which is to my left. The application site is to my right, and you can see the mature trees adjacent to the highway. This photo has been taken from Wheelers Drive looking towards the application site. This photo shows the relationship between the application site and the properties at numbers 1 to 4 Wheelers Drive. This photo shows where the proposed double garage would be located. I'll just point, so it would be approximately here. And here's the street view looking towards number 24. Again, you can see the relationship, the existing tree that's at the site, and you can note that there are garages already at the back of the properties on Leholme Way. I'll just go back to the block plan. So in terms of consultations, 12 objections, 1 representation in support of the application, and at the time of the committee report was drafted, a petition against the application with 182 signatories was received by the council. An updated petition with 15 additional signatures were received today by Democratic Services, bringing the total number of signatories to 197. A ward councillor and Wysock Residents Association have also objected to the application. Refer to section 6 of the committee report for further details on the consultation responses. The application is being recommended for refusal on the following 6 grounds. 1. The proposed development by reason of its inappropriate siting on open parcel of grass verge, plot size, scale and detached form of the proposed dwelling would erode the open character of the area and result in an incongruous and visually obtrusive form of development, which would fail to respect the established pattern of development in the local area and the surrounding streetscape. As such, the proposal would have a detrimental impact to the character, appearance and visual amenities of the existing street scene and the residential area as a whole. This would be contrary to Policy BE1 of the Hillingdon Local Plan Part 1, Policies DMHB 11 and 12 of the Hillingdon Local Plan Part 2, Policies D3 and D4 of the London Plan and the MPPF. 2, the proposal fails to demonstrate that the open amenity space to be lost to the development is surplus to requirements. The proposal is therefore contrary to Policy DMCI3 of the Hillingdon Local Plan Part 2, Policy G4 of the London Plan and Paragraph 99 of the MPPF. 3, the proposed development, by virtue of the application site falling in flood zone 3A, would not be a suitable location for the erection of a proposed dwelling. This is because the flood risk assessment fails to demonstrate that the proposed development will be safe without increasing flood risk elsewhere. No robust evidence has been submitted to demonstrate that there are no sequentially preferable alternative sites for the proposed development. Also, the proposal fails the exception test, as the benefits of the proposed development would not outweigh the flood risk. The proposal fails to demonstrate that future occupants would be safe in the event of a flood and fails to steer new development away from areas of the highest risk of flooding. The proposal is therefore contrary to Policy EM6 of the Hillingdon Local Plan Part 1, Policy DME9 of the Hillingdon Local Plan Part 2, Policy SI12 of the London Plan and Paragraphs 152, 162 and 163 of the MPPF. I'm just going to take you back to the photos just to help with the grounds for refusal. So the proposed development, by virtue of the loss of the existing mature trees at the site, would cause harm to the open and verdant character and appearance of the site, and would introduce an urbanising form of development that would not integrate well with its surroundings. The proposed replacement trees would not mitigate the harm caused to the character appearance of the area. The proposal would be contrary to Policy BE1 of the Hillingdon Local Plan Part 1, Policies DMHB 11, 12 of the Local Plan Part 2, Policies D3, D4 and G7 of the London Plan and the MPPF. I'm just going to go to the elevations because the next ground for refusal is to do with the design. So the proposed development, by virtue of its proximity, scale, design and side gable roof design, would result in an undue loss of outlook, visual intrusion and overbearing impact for the neighbouring occupiers residing at numbers 1 to 4 Wheelers Drive. This would be contrary to planning policy. I just want to talk about this in a bit more detail. So this side gable roof profile would be facing the properties at numbers 1 to 4 Wheelers Drive. I'll just show you a photo. So it's these properties here. That's what they would be looking out towards. So we added that as a ground for refusal. Okay. The last ground for refusal relates to parking. So I'll just show you the problem with the garage. So this is the proposed double garage here. So the internal parking bay length and width within the proposed garage fails to meet the required standard as defined within Policy DMT6 of the local plan. As a consequence, future occupiers of the proposed development are likely to rely on street parking spaces. This in turn would have the potential to lead to undue displaced on-street parking to the detriment of parking capacity and safety on the local public highway, contrary to Policies DMT1, 2 and 6 of the Hillingdon Local Plan Part 2, Policies T4, T6 and T6.1 of the London Plan and Paragraph 111 of the MPPF. Thank you.
Nisha, thank you. Very thorough. Okay, is Sandra Ebbets in the audience? No. Okay. Is the applicant Mr. Shatini? Yes, if you'd like to, would you like to speak? If you come to the forefront there. I hope I pronounced your name correctly there. So. Before we get started, are you actually representing Wimpy Homes? Is that? No. Because I've got the applicant as T Wimpy. Yeah, no, that's fine. Get yourself ready. I just want to just clear up that you're not actually from the Wimpy Homes. You're just a. Okay, fine. Okay. Okay, that's fine. I just want just for clarity. Whenever you're ready, sir, just press the red button.
So, hello everyone. So, I'd like to first introduce myself. My name is Mir Shtini. I'm the applicant for this application. I'm a civil engineer by profession, and I'm working in construction industry. This is the first time I have submitted a planning application, and it's the first time I'm attending a planning committee. So the purpose of this application is not for housing development. It is for me to have a house for my small family. I have been living in a small flat for a long time, and after the arrival of the little one, I find it very difficult to live in such a small place. Me and my wife have put all of our savings on this opportunity, and we would like to do what we can to build a house. So I'll just start by giving a little bit of background why this application. This all started around 2 years ago when I was desperately looking for a house. I was always struck by the idea of building my own house because I'm in the construction industry. But it was quite difficult to find a plot of land until I came across this land, which is owned by Taylor Wimpey, and they agreed to sell it to me. Before I spent time and money on this, I agreed with the sellers to submit a pre-app, and so to make sure that the planning can be obtained. So I spent months of learning how the planning system works, and with the help of my architect colleagues, I submitted a planning application. This was submitted on a pre-app. This was submitted on 6th of April 2021, and it was dealt by Catherine Mills. I've also had many conversations and meetings with Catherine to discuss the application in detail. She reviewed this with other senior officers, and the response was as follows. The proposed dwelling is considered acceptable in principle, provided it complies with the Council's policies in regard to impact on trees, external amenity space, and highways parking impact. Now, copy to this response were other senior officers, Mandip Malhotra, James Wells, and Lisa McLaughlin. So I'd like to just briefly mention on the pre-app response. First thing was impact on trees. So I submitted a tree report stating that I will plant 2 more trees in the rear garden and other trees in the neighbourhood, and I would be happy to provide funding for this. The external amenity space. The planning officer raises no objections. It complies with the current regulations in terms of the external amenity space. Highways and parking. The highways department state that the garages should be an internal width of 3 meters and a length of 6 meters. My garage is slightly smaller than that, and I agree they should be bigger, and I'm happy for this to be put in a pre-commencement condition rather than just refuse it, because there are 2 garages. I can make one smaller for the cycle storage and the other one bigger for the parking. So the planning officer has prepared the report, which starts by saying it is considered in principle that the proposal would be an inappropriate form of development. This is completely the opposite of what the pre-app response was, which clearly stated that the proposed dwelling is considered acceptable. So I submitted the exact same drawings in the pre-app and the exact same drawings in the full planning application, and I get completely the different refusal, completely different answer from 2 different officers. I'm also aware that there are 12 objections and 1 support in this application. I have carefully reviewed all the objections, and in my opinion, there are no grounds. Most of them focus on the loss of green space and playground area. This is a private land. The other one is reduction in property value, which is not a planning matter. Noise and disturbance, which again is not a planning matter. Also, there is 1 letter of support stating that the proposal would benefit in the current housing crisis, which we all agree that there is shortage in new houses, and the design is in character with the area. So I believe the planning should be granted for this application, as the exact same drawings were sent in the pre-app and were considered acceptable in principle. I agree that there are some technical details and information to be provided, such as increase the garage size and improve the flood risk assessment, but all this can be sorted out on the pre-commencement planning condition rather than refuse it. I got no refusal on the first time, and I get 6 reasons of refusal on the full planning application. I'd like to mention again, this is not a development property. This is an application to build a house for my growing family. And I would like all of you to put yourself in my position and decide whether this should be granted or not. I followed all the process and submitted the pre-app with the same drawings, and they were approved in principle. So, thank you for your time. That's all I wanted to say. It's been,
Thank you. So yes, Councillor Gohill, do you want to ask a question?
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just confirm, just for clarity, are you purchasing just the land that you want to build the house on, or the house that's already there and the land?
Just the land.
Just the land.
Just
so the
the
house will be owned by someone else.
The house. Sorry,
The house that's already there will be owned by someone else, because this is.
You mean 24, number 24?
Opposite, yeah.
Yeah, no,
so just the land.
Just the land. No,
okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No? Thank you very much. If you can turn the button off for me, that would be much appreciated. Okay. Will you, Councillor? Councillor Cawthorne, are you speaking on this one or the next one? Yeah, if you might like to come and take a seat. Thank you. And then we read. Whenever you're ready, you know the rule. You know the drill.
Been around longer than anyone here, pretty much, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Just a little bit more than me, yeah.
Thank you very much, committee members, for hearing me out this evening. I'm speaking on this. I'm aware of the recommendation. I support the recommendation, but I wouldn't want to be appearing to take your decision for granted. Clearly, you must consider this and follow due process. I'm staggered by what I've just heard, actually, from the applicant. I'm no doubt Ros Johnson will put us right on that in due course. I suppose two reasons I want to speak, really. I was staggered by the level of audacity, frankly, of this application, and the extent of the alarm and dismay in the community that it's given rise to. Only this morning I had another 15 signatures of the petition, which has been referred to already, so very high level of objections. That in itself isn't a reason to refuse it, I appreciate. But I would like to make the point that the retention of these green spaces in our suburban areas is essential for the amenity of our residents and for the health and well-being of the people around us. And I think the case officer has it exactly right when they say the insensitive squeezing of a dwelling on this parcel of land, which to me seems completely at odds with our planning policies, and I would be staggered if we felt able to approve that this evening. There is one point I would just like to underline. Much has been made about the flood issue here, the flood risk issue. I'm actually a member of the local flood liaison action group, and certainly at neighbouring Wallington Close, they've had flooding in the last 5 or 6 years. It's a live issue. Whenever we have extreme weather episodes, it's a big worry, and certainly additional rainwater runoff would contribute adversely to that risk, and that would be a major concern. I'm pleased the Environment Agency have objected, although I'm a frequent critic of them, I have to say, but I welcome their intervention on this occasion. So for that reason and for all the others that have been listed here, I support the recommendation, and I would respectfully urge committee members to support the officer's recommendation, notwithstanding what we heard from the previous speaker. Thank you.
As usual, Councillor Cawthorne, eloquent as usual. Any other questions for the councillor? No? Thank you. You may take your seats. We have a written response from your fellow councillor as well, so we'll read that out now.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We have a statement from Councillor Peter Smallwood in respect to this application. Committee, I am pleased to see this application is up for refusal and would fully support officer's recommendation in this case. The committee should note the substantial opposition from residents who have signed a petition that was last reported to me as councillor to have 182 signatures. This is supported by Ruislip Residents Association and all 3 local councillors. Whilst the 6 refusal points lay out the reasons why this should be refused, I wanted to highlight some of my own concerns and observations. Flooding is a big concern in Ruislip. This application would heavily increase the risk of flooding. As the report lays out, it does not beat the exception test. The proposal is visually out of kilter with the rest of the road. I believe it would be visually obstructive and would stick out like a sore thumb. The loss without replacement of both green space and mature trees is of concern. The applicant does not seem to have taken this into account. I believe this will impact neighbours, especially those in numbers 1 to 4 Wheeler Drive. The scale of the proposed development would cause an intrusion on their properties. I fully support the residents opposing this tonight. I hope the committee refuses the application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Right. So, Ros, do you want to come back on anything that was being said?
Yeah, perhaps it would be helpful if I just clarified in respect of pre-application advice. So just to be clear, any pre-application advice given by officers is informal advice, given in good faith, but it's certainly not binding on the decision tonight. I would just add as well, what we have before us now with the planning application, we have significantly more detail in terms of we have the technical reports, the flood risk assessment and the tree report, which, as you've heard, essentially we're not satisfied with the impacts in respect of that. And also just to make the comment that as part of the full planning application process, we do carry out the consultations, and as you've heard, we've had a significant response which has raised important points that we've taken into consideration. So, for example, it has been raised in terms of the concerns about loss of open space, which wouldn't necessarily have been so clear. But you know, we've got a clear recommendation in front of you, and a number of sound refusal reasons. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Gohill.
Thank you, Chairman. Initially, I saw 3-bedroom detached house, and I thought, great, another house for families for Hillingdon. But as we all know, not all houses are created equally. And actually, the application that's come forward for this particular case is not stepping up to what we would consider to be a suitable house in Hillingdon. I mean, my biggest concern is the flood risk, and I'm surprised it's not a larger concern for the applicant as well. No one would want to build a house only for it to be flooded down the line. In addition to that, to build a house, yes, but then to offset that by reducing number of trees that we have, and creating bulk and loss of space and privacy to neighbours, it just doesn't add up for me. So I'd like to go ahead and propose that we support officers' recommendations for refusal, please.
Thank you. Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Chair and officers. You explain everything regarding the trees and flooding. So I support this officer's recommendation on the second.
Thank you very much. So I'm proposing the seconder. So we all can you indicate with hands to show me whether you're in favour of officer's recommendation for refusal? That's unanimous. That's been refused. Thank you very much. Right, we go on now to the next one, which is item 8, St Catherine's Farm Court.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So this application at St Catherine's Farm Court is a council application. What the council is seeking to do is to convert the existing 3-bedroom warden's flat into 2 flats, comprised of 1 studio and 1 one-bed flat. This would only involve internal alterations. There's no external changes proposed. So the property itself is a sheltered accommodation for over 60s. And so we have received one representation and petition with 29 signatories, and the concern raised in this representation and the petition itself is that the development would compromise the status of the sheltered accommodation. So officers are recommending approval. So what we've done to address this concern is we've included condition number 3, which requires that the 2 flats are only used for sheltered accommodation for eligible residents over 60. So if we just go through the plans. Okay, so as you can see the site, I'll show you the site photos, but where the red line is, it's around the part of the building, but the building itself has is accessed down a driveway. So this is the existing floor plan, so it's a 3-bedroom flat, and it's on the. And what they're doing here is this is the floor plan of the two flats. So bird's eye view there, and so this is the street entrance to the site. And when you've gone down the driveway, this is the sheltered accommodation complex. The building, this is the front entrance, and the flat in question is the one to the rear. It is on this page here. So let me just put the little, it's this in here, so the flat is. Okay, so officers have recommended approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Right, David Evans is not attending, so is the applicant is LBH, is Janice Johnson here? No. Councillor Cawthorne, do you wish to speak on this item? I don't think so. Okay, fine, thank you very much. I'll go straight to the... We haven't got any written submissions, have we? No. Okay, so we'll go straight to the fork. And Councillor Sensibori?
Yeah, I think everything is clear from the officer report, and this proposal would not have any negative impact. So I think I propose officer recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Davis?
I'm happy to second officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much. That's proposed and seconded. I will, before we go, Councillor Gohill, you wish to speak? Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just one thing, I noticed that there was an officer's comment that if this was to be approved, there would be a condition to ensure it was sheltered accommodation only. Can I ensure that's added in as a condition, please?
Thank you. Well done, because I was going to say the same thing. Well done. Okay, so we're proposed and seconded, and that condition will be in, so to make sure residents know that it is just for sheltered accommodation. Okay, can I show of hands for those approving this application? So that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 9, 19 Beacon Close. Nisha, is this you?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, whenever
Thank
you're
you.
ready.
The application proposes the erection of 4 terraced dwellings incorporating landscaping, parking provision, raced and cycle stores. Here is the location plan. The site is approximately rectangular in shape and is located on the southern end of Beacon Close, which is a cul-de-sac. This is an aerial view of the application site. As can be seen from the constraints plan, the site is designated within a parking management zone. According to the Council's GIS, the site is designated within the Colne Valley Archaeology Priority Zone, North Hull RAF, 3 kilometre buffer zone and Hillingdon Air Quality Management Area. The site falls in flood zone 1, which represents a low probability of flooding. A section of the highway to the front of the site falls within the surface water management zone. However, the application site itself does not fall within this designation. The site has a P-TEL rating of 1B, which represents a very poor rating. Here is a photograph of the existing bungalow at the application site. This is the detached garage at the application site, which is located to the northeast of the bungalow. This is the rear elevation of the bungalow. This is a street scene photograph of number 19, which is the application site, and number 24, which is the adjacent bungalow to the right. Here is a photo of the wider street scene on Beacon Close. It should be noted that all the properties on Beacon Close are detached dwellings, and this specific housing type forms part of the established character of the street scene. Here are the proposed elevations and 3D renderings of the 4 proposed terraced properties. Here are the proposed ground, first and roof plans. So the ground floor plans will contain open plan kitchen, dining rooms. There's a reception room. And then on first floor level there are 3 bedrooms. In terms of the consultation process, 4 objections, including one from North Uxbridge Residents Association, were received by the Council, and a petition against the application with 21 signatories. Historic England Greater London Archaeology Advisory Service was consulted because the site falls within Colne Valley Archaeology Priority Zone. They commented that no further assessment or conditions were necessary as the site was regarded as having a low archaeology potential. The application is recommended for refusal on the following 8 grounds. So the proposed development, by reason of the number of dwellings being proposed, the terraced form, layout and siting, would result in an incongruous form of overdevelopment of the site that would fail to harmonise with the existing local context and the prevailing pattern of development on Beacon Close. The principle of intensifying the site would have a detrimental impact on the street scene and character appearance of the area. This would be contrary to policy BE1 of the Hillingdon Local Plan Part 2, DMH6, DMHB 11 and 12 of the Hillingdon Local Plan Part 2, policies D3 and D4 of the London Plan and the MPPF. I'm just going to go back to the renderings because we're going to be talking about the sign for the second ground floor refusal. So the proposed development, by reason of its forward projection beyond the established front building line in this section of Beacon Close, plot width, depth, massing, bulk, scale and design, including the uncharacteristically steep roof pitch. I'll just point to that. So here we go. So I'm talking about the steepness of the pitch of these roofs here. And the unduly monotonous appearance would fail to harmonise with the character and architectural composition of the surrounding properties, appearing as an awkward, incongruous and cramped form of development which would be detrimental to the visual amenity of the street scene and harmful to the character appearance of the surrounding area. This would be contrary to policy BE1 of the Local Plan Part 1, DMH6, DMHB 11 and 12 of the Local Plan Part 2, policies D3 and D4 of the London Plan and the MPPF. Grounds for refusal 3, the proposed development by reason of the excessive area of hard standing which you can see to the front of the site, for on-site car parking provision, negligible soft landscaping, removal of the existing front boundary treatment and forward position of the visually obtrusive bin stores would erode and be out of keeping with the existing pleasant, spacious and suburban character of the site and the surrounding street scene on Beacon Close. I just want to point out the bin stores. So the bin stores are being located here to the front of the site. Okay, so the ground for refusal number 4, the proposed development by virtue of the loss of the existing large tree at the site and in absence of an arboricultural report would cause harm to the open and verdant character and appearance of the site and would introduce urbanising form of development that would not integrate well with its surroundings. So the tree that would be lost is in this corner. They are proposing a replacement tree, but it's considered that it wouldn't mitigate the harm that would be caused to the character and appearance of the area. 5, in absence of a legal agreement to cover the required highways works to enable the proposed vehicle crossovers and on-site car parking provision and preventing the issuing of parking permits to future occupiers of the proposed dwellings which are located within a permit-controlled area, the proposed development is likely to lead to an increase in pressure for on-street parking and have a consequent adverse effect on highway safety through inconsiderate and potential hazardous parking and a risk to road users. 6, the proposed development by virtue of its constrained site layout, internal design of the building and absence of details to show that the internal layout would comply with approved document M of building regulation requirement M42 and M43 fails to demonstrate that adequate provision would be made to meet the needs of people with disabilities. This is contrary to London Plan Policies D5 and D7 and the MPPF. 7, in the absence of a preliminary ecology report, there is insufficient information to demonstrate that the proposed development, which would involve the demolition of an existing dwelling, would not cause harm to the protected species, which includes bats. This would be contrary to Policy G6 of the London Plan, Policies DEMI7 of the Hillingdon Local Plan and the MPPF. And the last ground for refusal, 8, insufficient evidence has been provided to demonstrate that secure, sheltered and well-located and accessible short and long-stay cycle store parking spaces can be provided for future occupiers without adversely impacting the character and appearance of the area. I just want to talk about this last ground for refusal in further detail. So as you can see on this landscape plan, the applicant's proposing cycle stores to the back of the properties. So if you look at the end terraces, they have a separate independent access that enables them to access the cycle stores without having to take the cycle stores through the house. So that's considered acceptable. However, the 2 mid-terrace properties, you have to carry your cycle through the house in order to access the cycle store. That's not considered to be a suitable location. It can't be argued that the cycle stores could be moved to the front because we already have concerns about the excessive amount of hard surfacing and also the position of the bin stores, and now potentially having the cycle stores would just exacerbate the number of structures to the front of the property. Also, the London plan requires short stay cycle stores, and that hasn't been provided for on this landscaping plan. So again, that's an additional structure that's required that needs to go somewhere on site. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Nisha. Thank you very much. Okay. We have a written representation submitted by petitioner Miss Shirley Roos. I want to read that one out first. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we have a representation from one of the petitioners, Shirley Roos. Members of the Borough Planning Committee, my name is Shirley Roos. I live at 18 Beacon Close, Uxbridge, and I am one of the signatories to the petition, which has been submitted in opposition to the above planning application. Please consider and take account of the views of the petitioners in respect of this application. The application seeks to replace the existing detached single-storey bungalow at 19 Beacon Close with 4 terraced houses, each comprising 2 storeys and containing 3 bedrooms, and hence being capable of accommodating 5 occupants. We are most grateful to the planning officers for their detailed and diligent report, which already highlights 8 valid reasons for refusal, and in this context we would particularly like to endorse the following observations. The design of the proposed new buildings is completely inconsistent with the street scene. Beacon Close is a quiet cul-de-sac comprising large family homes. The proposals represent an overdevelopment of the site, causing restricted internal and external amenity space. The footprint of the proposed development will encroach on the existing garden space of 19 Beacon Close and will result in the destruction of a large tree on the garden site. The proposals seek to create an excessively large hard-standing area to the front of the boundary of the site in an attempt to create parking and bin storage areas. This is inconsistent with the character of neighbouring properties and the street scene in general. We would also like to add further potential reasons for refusal. Beacon Close is a quiet cul-de-sac. The introduction of this proposed development has the potential to add between 6 and 10 additional cars which will travel up and down the road and will seek parking. As indicated in the officer's report, the PTAL rating of the site is extremely low, and therefore the absence of viable public transport facilities will maximise residents' reliance upon and use of private vehicles, thus causing increased vehicle traffic in the road with related increased safety and nuisance implications. The proposed development will create overlooking from the development into the rear garden of the neighbouring property, 24 Beacon Close. This proposed development will also therefore cause increased demand for parking, which will be in direct conflict with the existing U8 parking management scheme. If these proposals or any derivation of them were to be accepted, then the demolition and construction phases of the project would cause considerable noise, disruption and traffic congestion to neighbouring residents. Furthermore, 19 Beacon Close is situated at the end of the cul-de-sac, hence the road area immediately outside the property is used by large vehicles such as refuse collection lorries as a turning circle. The presence of construction plant and vehicles will obstruct this use. Members of the committee, Beacon Close is a quiet residential street on the very edge of Uxbridge. Its residents have invested in the homes in this street and have a right to expect that their way of life should not be disrupted and disturbed by a scheme which is designed with the sole objective of generating the largest financial return possible. I ask you to therefore consider favourably our additional reasons for refusal of this application and to reject it. Thank you.
Well done, Liz. That was very well done. Is the applicant or the agent here, Mr. Roder or Mr. Mindhurst? No? Okay. So, Councillor Burrows, thank you for waiting and being so patient.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to speak this evening on behalf of the residents within Beacon Close. As you've seen from the photographs, Beacon Close is a very quiet cul-de-sac. Many families have lived there for decades, and they like the heart and soul of the area. In the past, Hillingdon have not been able to control some planning applications because of the size and bulk, and because we haven't been able to find refusal that would pass any scrutiny. And in Beacon Close, they come to us as a council to keep the heart and soul within this area. As I say, many people have lived there for decades. And I feel that this is just, like the resident stated, for financial gain as opposed to offering the best policy of family homes. The size of these and the way they will look in character to the others is totally unacceptable. There will be an increase in the cars. I also had written down my concerns about the cycle sheds with the two middle dwellings and also the bin sheds at the front of the property. I feel that over the years, as I said, as a councillor there have been proposals we haven't been able to control, but I feel this is one that we can. And I would ask you as a committee to take into account what you've heard in great detail from the officer, I must add, for our refusals on this application. And I fully support the residents. I will continue to support the residents in this matter. And I would ask committee to give the applicant, the application, the consideration the officers have, and also support the officers in their refusal of this application. And I thank you for hearing me this evening.
Thank you, Keith. Very nice. No, sorry, Councillor Burrows. Can't call you by first name in the public, can I? Any questions for Councillor Burrows? No. Thank you. We've been here the same amount of time, haven't we? We have. There we go. Right. Okay, so I'll open to the floor. Who's going to? Councillor Jubadar and Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would like to thank the officers, the petitioner, and the councillor for their reports and speaking on this matter. Obviously, this application is for a site, and they're proposing to overdevelopment of the site. It fails to demonstrate adequate provision for people with disabilities. It increases demand and pressure on parking. Lots of existing large tree, fails to harmonize with the surrounding properties, etc., etc. So I'm in total support of the officer's recommendation for refusal, but I would like the officers to examine if we could add additional conditions based on the petitioner's presentation. The petitioner had raised 4 points, and I would like the officers to consider these, and if possible, we add these to the conditions, if they're not already embedded, actually, in some form or shape, in the conditions which have been proposed in the report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Tudor.
Sorry.
You know, so just one.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. So the points raised by the petitioner were considered as part of the assessment of this planning application, and hopefully I'll be able to address them here. So the first issue was about the parking. That, I believe, has been sufficiently addressed by ground floor refusal number 5. It talks about the potential pressure that would be created on the street parking, and due to the failure of the legal agreement, because the site's within a parking management zone, so the point raised by the objector about the management zone has been taken into account and forms part of the ground floor refusal on number 5. In terms of the impact on number 24, if you look at the landscaping plan, number 24 is to the right. The concern about privacy, it's not considered that this scheme would result in a material loss of privacy for number 24. The rear building line would be in alignment with the rear building line of number 24, and this is a suburban area. There will be a degree of mutual overlooking on properties that is quite common in residential areas, and it's not considered that the impact on the residential amenity of number 24 would be harmful. So I don't think, I wouldn't recommend adding an additional ground for refusal on that particular concern raised by the objector. In terms of noise created from construction, if this application was considered acceptable, officers would have recommended a construction management plan, and that would have covered the construction operating hours, so that could have been sufficiently mitigated. So again, I don't think that's a ground for refusal, because that could have been addressed through a condition. I think I've addressed all the key points. Unless there's anything else I've missed, let me know.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Nisha. We were scrambling around trying to remember, and obviously you knew it all. So that's how good you are. That's answered those questions for you, Councillor?
Yes, to a certain extent, yeah. And based on the answers I have just heard and the presentations, I would like to propose us to go with the officer's recommendations for refusal. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the officers. My main concern is out of crack to that area, a huge big development, and cycle storage is it's in the middle. so I'm second for the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm proposing the secretary. Anybody got any questions? No? Okay. Can I have a show of hands, those in favour with officer's recommendation for refusal? That's unanimous, Liz. Thank you. So that's that done. That brings us to the end of our petitions. So I'll let everybody leave if they wish, if they have nothing to be here. And then we'll go on to item 11, which gives me a chance to get there as well. So just bear with me, please. Okay. Right. This is the. In terms of the address, it's all good. Yeah. There we go. It's here. This is the joys of getting to know my computer and trying to find the applications. It doesn't sort of give me that. So it's Northview Car Park in Eastcote. Beg your pardon, everybody. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. So the next application is at Northview Car Park, and the proposal is to change the use of part of it to a secured car pound. So this is a council application. So just as a bit of a background, so in January 2022, Cabinet approved a parking enforcement contract. So since then, council officers and the parking services team have been actively working on introducing new parking enforcement services, or a new service. And one element of this service is the introduction of a vehicle removal and car pound operation. So what's being proposed in this application is that vehicles that are parked illegally within Hillingdon Borough would be removed and taken to the proposed car pound. So the motorists would then have to pay for the vehicle removal service, and if it's not collected, then vehicles will be disposed of. So they're proposing there'll be 26 vehicle spaces in the car park. So this is the site here. So as you can see, it's the far end of the Northview car park. So the remaining part of the car park would still be public car park. Okay, so in terms of, so as part of the application, parking surveys over the course of the year had been submitted, and these essentially demonstrated that the car park is currently underutilised, that there's a lot of sufficient parking spaces that aren't being used. So what the proposal would do is it would enable the car pound operation without compromising the public use of the car park. So in terms of the physical alterations that are being proposed, it will involve palisade fencing. So the palisade fencing would go along here. Bollards also in front of there to, I guess, stop cars from driving through. There'll be a mobile office as well. So it's placed, the mobile office is placed where my red dot is currently. That's adjacent to the railway tracks. So the reason behind its siting there is to be away from the residences here. There's no resurfacing works proposed. There's no tree removal. There's no additional exterior lighting proposed. So it's simply these physical works. So if I just flick through This is just images of, or plans of the proposed mobile office. So as you can see there, it's on wheels. Bird's eye view. And these are photos of the car park, so you can get an idea of parking currently and where it will be located, where the compound will be here. Oh, so that's it. So officers are recommending approval subject to conditions. Thanks.
Okay, do I have any comments or questions? Anybody? Take me out on this one. Councillor Davis?
It might be in the report already, but I can't see anything about vehicle idling or anything like that. Are we able to condition something? Because I would be worried that the free flow of cars being collected, etc., maybe idling while they're getting their paperwork sorted, etc., could become a nuisance.
Officers, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, I'm just thinking it might be a difficult condition for us to enforce, and we shouldn't impose a condition that we can't enforce. I think perhaps the best we could do is a condition to ask for the submission of a management plan, just to sort of explain how the premises would be operated, if you'd be happy with that, Councillor.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Chuba.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to say I would like to propose the officer's recommendation for approval with the condition which was mentioned by Councillor Davis.
Okay, so I'm proposing seconded. I'm not seconded. Councillor Davis. I think he's going to do that now.
I'm happy to second the officer's recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go any further, it's something that I've picked up. There's no CCTV cameras protecting the site. So is that possible to have that as a condition?
Yes, Chairman. We've included it in the addendum report, so that will be part of the recommendation.
Fantastic. So that's on the Councillor Tilley. Councillor Tilley, sorry. Mr. Tilley, would you like to say anything? Sorry. Sorry, beg your pardon.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to confirm that CCTV cameras had been picked up.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Chairman.
Brilliant. So that's in the addendum, and with that other thing that Councillor Davis suggested with the management plan, can I have those show in favour of officer's recommendation? So that is approved. Thank you. So now we go to item 12. Which is... there you go, I've sorted out. Eastcote Gardens. We have two applications of Eastcote Gardens, which is 12 and 13. I would hope the committee wouldn't mind if we were to take these both together, and then obviously the person that proposes and seconded will be doing for both of them. Is that okay with you as well? Yeah, we do separate votes. Okay, but I'll keep the same people.
Yes.
Okay, so Kate.
Oh, thank you. This application is, it's two applications. One's planning permission and listed building consent, and they are to repair some Grade 2 listed walls within a walled garden. So the details of the proposed repair works are outlined on page 144 of the committee report, but essentially the walls are in a state of disrepair and they're considered necessary works. So the Eastcote Residents Association and Eastcote Conservation Panel have both written in to support the proposals. So the two representations were received in response to consultation. And the Council's Heritage Officer has also assessed the proposals and met contractors on site to agree an appropriate approach to the works as well as the materials. So the Conservation Officer and Planning Officers consider the works necessary and that they'd be carried out with regard to good conservation practice. So essentially we're recommending approval for both their planning permission and the listed building consent. And I'll just go through, it might be, I think the best, these are the walls, but I think the best reference would be the photos at the end, although it's just segments. So it's the walled garden there in aerial. So all four walls are having different types of repairs put on them, and this is just photos of the walls currently. So it's external views and then internal. This is a sample. There's plenty more photos in the submitted documentation. It was very thorough. So officers recommend approval. Thank you.
That was for both of them, Kate? Yes. Okay, fine. So we'll take it one at a time. Councillor Gofield, Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. All walls need repairing, whether they're Grade 2 listed or not. I see no reason to have any issue with either of these applications, so I'm happy to propose that we support Officer's recommendation for both.
Thank you very much. Councillor Davis.
I'm happy to second, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a proposal and seconder for item 12. Can we have show of hands, all agree with officer recommendation? And item 13, proposed and seconded by the same people, all agreed. Let's all go through. So, if people, actually, it's a very lovely place to go and see. So you should actually, one of our gems, our jewels in the ground in the borough. It's well worth a visit. Okay, we go to item 14.
Thank you, Chair. Item 14, Raybridge Farm, Harefield. The application proposes the conversion of the existing barns into 5 residential units, including roof lights, alterations to the fenestration and cladding with associated external works. It should be noted that planning permission was granted in 2019 for the proposed conversion of the existing barns into 4 residential units. This will be discussed in more detail during my presentation. Here is the location plan. Aerial view for context. As can be seen from the constraints plan, the site is located within the green belt. This is the reason why this application is being presented to members this evening. Here are the existing elevations. These are photographs of the existing barns. This is the proposed elevation drawing. The key design changes that have been proposed since the approval of application reference 2019-3837 are the repositioning of the proposed garage doors on the southern elevation of the barn, which I can point to here. So these have been moved into this elevation, and also additional roof lights. Based on the revised drawings that have been submitted, it is considered that the conservation-style roof lights would appear as discrete and sympathetic features. The proposed garage doors would be similar in design to that previously approved under 2019-3837. Here are the other proposed elevations. This is the proposed site plan. The proposed development is inappropriate development within the green belt by definition. It is considered that the proposed development would have a moderate impact on the openness of the green belt. However, it is considered that the proposed development would cause no greater harm to the green belt compared to the scheme approved under planning permission reference 2019-3837. So just to clarify, at the beginning of my presentation I said it was approved in 2019, but that's the date the application was submitted. It was approved in 2020, so just to clarify. For the conversion of the existing barns into 4 residential units. Whilst this current proposal would provide 5 residential units with habitable accommodation within the roof space, the existing ground floor footprint of the barns would not be increased. Accordingly, given the clear fallback position available to the applicant, i.e. he could implement the previous permission, no additional planning harm arises from the proposed scheme, and the planning balance is considered to be the same. Looking at the case as a whole, it is considered that very special circumstances exist to justify inappropriate development in the green belt. It is therefore considered that in this particular and individual situation, the principle of development is acceptable. So here are the proposed ground floor plans. So you have units 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 here. So you've got garages, can't see, sorry, pointing there. Thank you, Councillor, for moving, Councillor Singh. And then I'm going to go to the first floor plan. So units 1 and units 2 are 2-storey dwellings, and they have their bedrooms on this level. So the negotiations that occurred during this application was to ensure that the outlook from these bedrooms would be adequate, and that was achieved by slightly lowering the roof lights and also increasing the size of the roof lights. As can be seen from the landscape plan, each of the proposed residential units would be provided with their own separate private amenity space ranging between 115 and 259 square metres. This would far exceed the minimum requirements of policy DMHB 18 of the Hillingdon local plan. Due to the separation distance involved, it is considered that the proposed development will not impact on the living conditions of neighbouring occupiers. The proposal would provide 2 car parking spaces per dwelling, plus 2 visitor car parking spaces. This equates to 12 car parking spaces in total. It is acknowledged that the proposed on-site car parking provision would exceed the maximum standards set by the Hillingdon Local Plan and the London Plan. However, it is considered on balance that this provision is acceptable as it reduces the potential for untoward on-street parking displacement resulting from a higher dependency on private motor vehicle due to the site's PTAR rating of 0, and the 0 rating represents the worst situation in terms of accessibility to public transport. So officers welcome the higher provision on the number of on-site car parking spaces. So the existing stables, which are greyed out here, they're going to be retained as studies and storage spaces for the proposed dwellings. There's a condition recommended just to prohibit these stable blocks being used for any other purpose. So they will remain ancillary to the residential units that potentially would be approved tonight. So in terms of consultations, 3 objections, including 1 from Harefield Tenants and Residents Association, were received. The planning officer responses to the concerns raised by the objectors can be found in section 6 of the committee report. During the course of the application, updated ecology reports were submitted. The report concludes that bat roots were present within the barn. Condition 6 requires the submission of the European Protected Species Mitigation Licence to be submitted prior to the commencement of any works. Historic England Greater London Archaeology Advisory Service was consulted as the site is within Colne Valley Archaeology Priority Zone. They have raised no objection because it's considered that the proposal is unlikely to have any significant effect on heritage assets of archaeological interest, and they haven't recommended any further assessment or conditions. It is therefore recommended that the application is approved subject to conditions. I would like to draw members' attention to the addendum, which includes a consultation response from Caden Gas, who has raised no objections subject to an affirmative, and also an additional condition requiring the submission of a parking management scheme to be submitted to the council for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nisha. And also, you've done a management plan for the rubbish as well, which I was very pleased to see in there, which is so that there's a management plan on that. And also, you covered the bats, just in case there's the bats, so that's very good. Councillor Gohill.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I ask the officers what precedence this would set for building on green land in the future? Maybe their neighbours, maybe someone else who has a similar situation where they have unused barns that they want to convert. I just want to get a clear scope of that, please. Sure, thank you, Councillor. What I would like to say is that significant weight has been given to the previous permission that was approved, and that was for 4 residential units. So this application is not seeking to increase the size of the barns. The only difference is that they're now utilising the roof space to provide bedrooms at first floor level. In terms of setting a precedent, each planning application must be assessed on its own individual merits. The MPPF has very clear guidance as to what's considered as inappropriate development, so any potential planning application coming forward on a neighbouring site would need to accord with the policy set out at national level within the MPPF, the London Plan, regional level, and also the Hillingdon's local plan at local level. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gohill.
Sorry, if I could just follow up, Chairman. Just a separate point. I noticed that the contamination officer has listed 3 items that he'd like to put as conditions. Can we ensure that they're added as conditions to this application, please?
Yes, Councillor. So the condition recommended by the Council's Land Contamination Officer is noted within the committee report and will be attached to the decision notice if members were minded to approve this application this evening. Thank you.
Yeah, obviously, being an ex-Harefield councillor, the whole land. A lot of the land used to be a waste place, so we used to have this condition in. So there you go. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. I looked through the report and I couldn't see anything on lighting. Are we concerned about additional lighting because of these properties being there, lights being on later because we're being greenbelt land, etc.?
Wildlife. Yeah.
Sure. That will be covered through the ecological enhancements and mitigation measures, and that's covered in a condition already within the committee report. So yes, that was considered, and officers are of the view that that is sufficiently addressed through the mitigation measures that the applicant would have to adhere to.
Sir Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just come back on that? So is there anything that conditions, I'm assuming there's going to be parking lights, etc., being on for long periods of time, because I can imagine with that being a residential property, lights at 2-3 o'clock in the morning are going to have some sort of impact on the wildlife in the area, especially the back. So maybe that there'd be automatic lights that come on and go off or something. I know it's hard to condition, but...
Ros.
Yeah, if I may jump in. So, Nisha has mentioned we've got the ecological enhancement criterion in the landscaping condition, but I'd be more than happy to include, specific reference to lighting and how that would be operated, because yes, we could seek to secure lighting that goes off when it's not required, so like one that pops on when it's needed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if we could add that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So, I haven't been proposed and seconded yet, so... Councillor... Yeah. Go on, Councillor Davis.
Chairman, providing the conditions that we've mentioned have been added, I'd be happy to propose the recommendation of the officers.
Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm the second for the recommendation of the officers.
Thank you very much. So, being proposed and seconded, and with those additional conditions around the lighting and the addendum as well. Can I have a show of hands for those in approval? That's it. That's been approved. Thank you very much. And the last one is the former EMI site, Dawley Road, Hayes, which is a bit of a surprise for us to see this. Usually it's been on the majors, but Kate.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So this application's been referred to Planning Committee because of a Section 106 agreement. We haven't received any representations from the general public. And so the proposal was to demolish a single-storey building and a glazed link in order to provide a service yard at the western end of this warehouse site. There are also alterations proposed to the larger building on site, including the insertion of 2 loading bays on its western end. So if I just... Oh, sorry. This is the site here in the existing building. So as you see, the building, well, at the top of this image is the single-storey building being proposed to remove, and they're going to form a service yard there instead. So it will create a more modern logistics operation. So the proposed logistics use is appropriate within... so the reason it's doing so, EMI advised that they're relocating the archive part of their business, and the proposed refurbishment works and formation of the service yard will create a modern logistics operation. So the proposed use is appropriate within the SIR designated site, and no objections are raised to the small reduction in floor space. So once again, that's it there. Okay, given the wider benefits of the proposal in creating a more efficient servicing yard, so officers recommend that the application is approved subject to appropriate conditions, and the Section 106 agreement will secure air quality mitigation contributions, a contribution to Santander Bikes, a green travel plan, and a project management and monitoring fee. So just in terms of the elevations, that's the building there. It's being removed. There it is there, disappearing. And that's the proposed parking and service yard that will be created with its demolition. Officers recommend approval subject to conditions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kate. I'll open it straight to the floor. So, Councillor Gohill.
Thank you, Chairman. There's quite a lot of conditions on this, but that gives me the confidence that this has been thoroughly assessed by officers, and on that basis I'm happy to propose officers' recommendation for approval.
Thank you very much. Councillor Troubadour.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to second the proposal.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? No, that's it. Thank you very much. So can you show of hands to go with officer's recommendation for approval? That's unanimous as well. Okay, with the actual addendum condition as well. Okay, so it's time to say good night. We come to the end. Thank you very much for your time, ladies and gentlemen, officers, and have a safe journey home. And there we go, we're finished. I'll call this meeting closed. Off? Yeah. There.